Begin today at Daf Pei Aleph on the Mishnah towards the top of the Yomad. Zok Teilige Mishnah mi shenis chayev b'shtei mises bezdin. One that did two different avedas, that he's chayev mises bezdin twice. Misonitten bechamura. He gets the misa which is more severe, because if he's chayev twice, so then you have to give him the one that's he's chayev more severe. Now over aveda shenis chayev shtei mises. If a person does one Aveda, and that one Aveda is two mises for it. The example Rashi brings there, and the Gemara will say, is by Arayas. If one has a relation with his mother-in-law, which is also an Eshes Ish. So it's two different Isurim, two different Arayas in one. So in such a case, also, Nidin Bechamura. He gets the one that's more severe. Now in the first case, he did two completely different Avedas. Here it's one Aveda. Now Rabbi Yossi regarding this case, Rabbi Yossi says, Nidain b'zike harishayna sheba'alav. The one that he's punished with is the first Isser that he was connected to in this with this person, this Aveda that he did here. Regarding Chamaisa and Eshes Ish, the Gemara will explain, depends what happened first. Was she first a mother-in-law, or was she first an Eshes Ish? Okay, so the Gemara asks in the first halacha of the Mishnah, Pshita, it's obvious that the person should get the more severe punishment of Misa. Ella is guri isger. If the person did a more severe Aveda, which demands a more severe Misa, and then he does a lighter Aveda, which is a lighter Misa, so he's going to gain out because he did that lighter Aveda, so now his Misa should go down a level. Amar Rav, so Rav explains what the chiddush of the Mishnah is. What is this Mishnah speaking about? The person did an Aveda which is lighter, that's v'nigmar dina al Aveda kala, and there was already a Gemar din. The verdict of the Bezdin that he's chayev a lighter Misa, and then v'chazar v'over Aveda chamura. After the Gemar din, now we did a more severe Aveda. That's chayev a more severe Misa. In this case, Solkat Aitachamina, I would think to say, Ki v'nigmar dina al Aveda kala. Now there's already a Gemar din for the lighter Aveda. So hi gavre ketilahu. This person is already like a dead person. We had before in the Gemara, a person that is already a psak din about him is a gavre ketila. So now when he does a more harsher Aveda that deserves a harsher punishment, that doesn't apply to him. Kamash Malon, therefore the Mishnah here says that even after the Gemar din, he does an Aveda, he's going to be chayev the harsher Misa that he did for this harsher Aveda. So now, what's the source for this? Misvara, you would say that he's a Gavra Ketila. So the Gemara brings there by Minei, according to one Gersa Avua, that Rav Yosef Bar Chome Merabe Bar Nosen Mina Mil Sadam Rabbana. From where do we know this chiddush that we just said that the Chachamim said that Mish and Chayiv Shtei Mises Bezdin Nidin Bechamura, that if he's Chayiv in two, and even if the first one there was already a Gemar din, and then he did another Aveda, he still gets the harsher one. Because there's a pasuk in Yecheskel where Yecheskel is telling the Yidden that you're only going to be punished for the Avedas that you do. And therefore, if the father is a tzaddik, but then the child is not, so then the child gets punished for his Avedas that he did, and the schusim of the father will not be beneficial for him. And therefore he says, if there's a person that's tzaddik, and then vahilit ben paritz shofich dam, gives birth to a child that's lawless, and he spills blood, Eloharim achal, he eats from the mountains, which refers to eating from tekrevis Avodah Zarah, from Avodah Zarah. V'seishes re'eyu timei, and he becomes defiled with a wife of his friend. V'lagilulim nasa einov, and he lifts his eyes to Avodah Zarah. So what is this pasuk talking about? What are the details here? V'hoylud ben pares shofech dam. This refers to someone that spills blood. What's the punishment? Which misa is there for a ritzeach? B'sayif, with a sword. As Eshes Reyu Timei, then it says that he had a relation with an Eshes Ish. So Eshes Ish, it's Bechenek. Here the Misa is Chenek. Then Val Gilulim Nasa Einov, he lifts his eyes to Avodah Zarah. So Avodah Skechavim, which is Beskila. The punishment for this is Skila. Now what does the pasuk there say when it concludes regarding this person that did various different Avedas that have different punishments of Misa? Well, the pasuk says, Mois Yumas, and then it adds, Dom of Boy Yiyah. And what does the term of Dom of Bayiyah mean? The skila, that refers to skila. As we learned already before in the Gemara, you learn out from what it says by Oiven Yudaini, Demei and Bam, and there it says Ragim Yirgimo, that it's with skila. Whenever it uses in the title this term of Dom of Bayiyah means skila. So what do you see from here? That although this person did various different Avedas, he gets the harshest punishment, which is skila. Now, if you would say that this pasuk is speaking about a case where there was no gemar din yet for the lighter aveda, and it's coming to say that he gets the harsher punishment of skila, there's no chiddush in that. The pasuk here is specifying these different avedas, and it says he gets skila. It's teaching me that even if he already had the gemar din of a lighter misa, nevertheless, later on, if he continues and he does a harsher aveda, he gets skila. This is the source for this halacha. But the Gemara asks, how do you know that this is the chiddush of the pasuk? Maskef Larav Nachman by Yitzchak. Eime kulu b'skila. I could translate and explain the pasuk for you in a way that all of these avedas that it mentions in the pasuk are all chayav the same misa of skila. When it says v'hoilud ben paritz, he gives birth to a child that's lawless and shefich dam, he spills blood. Ze ben seirer emayra. This refers to the ben seirer emayra, although he doesn't spill blood yet. But as we know, regarding the ben seirer emayra, based on his behavior, the Torah says that we know al shem seifai that he's going to end up spilling blood. That's what it refers to. The beskila. So this ben seirer emayra is skila. Then when it says eshes reyu timei, it doesn't just mean a regular eshes ish, but it means unaira mayrasa. The beskila. It's unaira mayrasa after the first stage of marriage, which is also skila. Then valal gilulim nasaenav zu avedis kachav in the beskila. It's also skila. So they're all three skila, and that's what the pasuk says. The mayim dam of bayeh that he gets skila. Says the Gemara, but if that's the case, so what's Yecheskel saying here when he specifies these avedas specifically? There's no chiddush in this if it's all skila, and the pasuk says you get skila. So the Gemara says, who says there's a chiddush here? He's just repeating the mitzvahs of the Torah. And these avedas that you should be careful from, and the punishment for this, and he's warning Yidden. Says the Gemara, but if that's the case, so then why is he singling out specifically these avedas? He should repeat and warn Yidden regarding all avedas, like Moshe Rabbeinu did, the Mishnah Torah, when he goes through many of the mitzvahs and avedas of the Torah. So the fact that he singles out these three is because he's teaching a chiddush, a halacha, regarding these three cases, and that's what we said over here, that we see in the Mishnah, that even if there was a gemar din on a lighter misa, later if a person does chamura, he gets the misa that's more chamer.
So it's a
yeah, it's a limit from the pasuk, yeah. Okay, so now the Gemara brings one of the details that it says there actually in the pasuk before. As I mentioned, this pasuk speaks about the son that is behaving this way. But before that in the pasuk, it speaks about the father, which is a tzaddik, and the father, the Gemara, the pasuk there speaks about the father and says regarding the father that he's going to live, he's a big tzaddik. Now, what's the description of the tzaddik? So Darash Ravacha Bar Chanina, my the pasuk there says regarding the father, Eloharim lo yachal. He doesn't eat from the mountains. Now, if you look in the simple pshat of the pasuk, it would seem, but what it's saying is, Haharim achal refers to one that eats from Avodah Zarah. So Haharim lo yachal means he doesn't eat from Avodah Zarah. So Rashi says, the Gemara here regarding this pasuk and regarding the other details that it describes here in the pasuk and this person, it doesn't want to touch it literally, because just because he doesn't eat from Avodah Zarah, therefore he's a tzaddik. That's not enough to explain why the pasuk there concludes, as we'll see, tzaddik hu chaya yichya. So therefore the Gemara is going to explain all the details in the pasuk here that it means on a higher level, that it makes him a tzaddik. So when it says here that he doesn't eat from the mountains, what it means is it's a person that's such a great tzaddik that he doesn't have to rely on the merit of the avis. He has his own merits to rely upon. Then when the pasuk goes on to say ve'einav le'nasal gelulei beis Yisrael, he didn't lift his eyes to the Avodah Zarah. What does this mean? It doesn't just mean Avodah Zarah, but rather shalei halach b'kayim eskufa. He doesn't walk with an upright posture, meaning walking around with gaiva, with haughtiness. Rather, he's has achna. He's humble, bittul. And as the Marsha says, that's connected to Avodah Zarah. Gaiva is compared to Avodah Zarah. Gaiva, a person is a yesh. He feels himself. That's the source of the concept of Avodah Zarah. Then doesn't just mean eishes ish. Rather, it means he doesn't do something that takes away from his friend's business. Just like a person's wife takes care of the home, so too the person's business brings the source of parnasa for the home. So it means that he doesn't open up a store across the street of his friend and takes away his business. Vel isha nida la yikrav, he doesn't come close to a woman, which is a nida. What does this refer to on a higher level? Shleinena mikupa shel tzedakah. He doesn't take from a kupa of tzedakah, which means nida is something which is degrading, despicable, and therefore it means kupa shel tzedakah means the same thing regarding this tzaddik. Uksev, and then after all of this, the pasuk says, it's tzaddiku. This is a person that's a tzaddik and choya yichya. He will live. Now, then the Gemara says, when Rabbi Gamliel came to this pasuk, so he cried. Why? Because V'amar, he said, man, the Ovid lekulu hu the chaye, one that fulfills all of these that it says in the pasuk, only he lives. But if he fulfills one of them, he's not going to live. Amalei Rav Akiva, so Rav Akiva answered, Ela meyata. If you're understanding the pasuk here this way, so based on this that it says in the pasuk, Al tetamu b'chol eila. Do not become impure with all of these. So it talks about over there in the pasuk, there's different kinds of tumah. There's a tumah of a zav and all different kinds of tumah. And it says al tetamu b'chol eila. Hachanami b'kulu in b'chadam minayolai. The pasuk is saying that you shouldn't become tummy with all, but with one it's okay. That's not what it means there. Ela ba'achas mikol eila. When it says b'chol, it means one of them. You shouldn't become tummy. So hachanami over here as well, ba'achas mikol eila. If one fulfills only even one of the things that it mentions here in this pasuk, he's on the level that the pasuk concludes about him. Tzadik hu choya yichya, he will live. Going back to what it said in the Mishnah, over aveire, if one did one aveire that has two punishments of miseh, and so on that, Rabbi Yossi said that which misa will he get? The one that the iser on that person that he had. We're talking here about Arayas. The iser came first. So Tanya and Abraisa, we learned about this. Kate Adam Rabbi Yossi nidin bezika rishaina. What did Rabbi Yossi mean to say that the punishment will be with the one that the iser was connected to first? That is the case of Abba Olav. Sorry, the way you read it is nidin bezika rishaina Abba Olav. So what's the case here? If a person marries and his wife is a daughter of his mother-in-law, which is a almana at that point. So the first Isser was that she was his mother-in-law. And then later on she gets remarried and now she's an Eishes Ish. So which Misa does he get? The Misa of a mother-in-law, which is Sreife. The Misa of a Eishes Ish is Chenek. So in this case, Chamaisa is first, he gets Sreife. Now, Eishes Ish, Venasas Chamaisa, was the opposite. First she was an Eishes Ish, and then she became his mother-in-law. So then Nidin Beishes Ish, the punishment he gets is Chenek, which is Eishes Ish. So now Amalei Ravada Barava Lerove, Ravada Barava asks Rava about what it says in this Braise. Now the reason for what Rabbi Yossi says here is because Rabbi Yossi holds that when you have two Isurim that are in the same person, we say Ein Isser Chal Al Isser. One Isser does not take effect when there's already another Isser there. There's no room for the second Isser to take effect. So therefore, whatever was first, that's the only Isser. The other Isser does not take effect. So now based on this, Ravada Barav asks Rave, Chamaisai v'nasas Eishes Ish, in a case where she was first a mother-in-law, and then she becomes an Eishes Ish, Nidin b'chamaisai. So the Braisa says that the punishment here is just Chamaisai, just a mother-in-law, and there's no room for a second Isser here, but Lidin Nami Eishes Ish. There should also be a punishment for this, that she's an Eishes Ish, because the Ha'amar Rabavo said about Rav Yossi's opinion that once there's one Isser, there's no room for a second Isser, because Ein Isser Chalal Isser, Maida Rav Yossi B'Isser Maisif. In a case where the second Isser adds, it's Maisif more than the first Isser. Like in this case, when she's first Asr as a mother-in-law, she's mutter to the entire world. She's an Almana. She's only Asr to him. Now, when she becomes an Eishes Ish, she becomes Asr to other people. It's Maisif Isser to other people. Once there's room to add a Isser here, Mitzad Eishes Ish, for everyone else, it adds, even regarding this person that's already Asr from Chamaisai, that there'll also be the Isser of Eishes Ish. So why is Rabbi Yossi in this case saying that we don't add Isser of Eishes Ish? Amalei, so Rava answered, Ada Beri. Adam, my son. It's an expression of love. It wasn't his son. He says, what are you asking? Betray Kotli Katlisley? You're going to kill this person twice? If it's already a Isser of Chamaisa and he's Chayiv Sreifa, so what's the question? That you should be Chayiv for Eishes Ish a second time? If it's a Chayiv Misa, it's not possible to ask such a question that there should be a second Chayiv over here. So what's your question, B'chlal? So Tosfos explains the reason why Ravada asked this question, because he understood that the Braise that quotes Rabbi Yossi's opinion was talking even about a Shaygig, where there's a Karban Chatos. And there is a relevance for the fact that you say that there's a second Issa that's added, that you bring twice the Karban Chatos. So he answered him that you misunderstood. The Braisa is not speaking about a Shaygig. It's only speaking about a Mezid. So regarding a Mezid, there's only one Chiyav Misa. So therefore his question is not a question. Zokte Mishnah. Again, what?
The second Misa more Chomer.
By Eishes Ish, the second Misa is lighter. No, it's Chenek. Zokte Mishnah. Mi Shalaka Vishana. A person that was over an Aveda that Yechayev Malchus, lashes, and it happened once and a second time. Bezdin, so now, after this, Bezdin machnis noisel kippah. If he does Navera again, Bezdin will put him into a kippah, which is basically a very tiny, small room or a cell. And then they give him to eat barley. And this is after they starved him and they gave him to eat very little before, and his stomach became very contracted. And then afterwards he eats barley, and the barley expands in the person's stomach. And then the person dies in this kippah. Okay, as we'll see in the Gemara says that towards the end of the whole Indian here, that this concept of placing a person into a kippah that causes him to die is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Regarding this kind of case, it's a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. So the Gemara now asks on this, Mishum de Lokka Vishana. A person got Malchus once and again, Bezdin Kainz Naisa L'Kippah. This is a reason for the person to be in a kippah. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Hacha b'Malchus shel Krisis Askina. This halacha of the Mishnah does not apply regarding any Malchus, but it's a Malchus on an Aveda where there's a Issa Kodesh as well. So now, if there's a Kodesh, what does Kodesh mean? The Gavra Bar Ketilu. Kodesh means that in Hashemayim, the person dies early. The Eibusha takes away his life. So he's chayiv misa b'dei Shemayim. The time where he's going to die did not yet come. But now we see, since we see that this person is already hefker, he's doing that same Aveda again and again, and he doesn't care about the fact that he's chayiv kodesh and he's ready to give up his life. So therefore, we bring his death earlier, that he should die right away, that he shouldn't do the Aveda again. That's the reason why this is done, that the person is placed into the kippah. But again, as I mentioned, even though the Gemara here is giving this svara, this is not the basis of why we do this. The basis is the halacha l'Moshe Misinai. The Gemara is explaining what the point about this halacha l'Moshe Misinai is, so we should understand the definition of this halacha l'Moshe Misinai and when it applies. My nafkamina, if you know the reason of the halacha l'Moshe Misinai, because here, as we'll see, the next point the Gemara says, it's relevant for this point. Let me explain this to you, based on what we just said, that the reason here. The Malki is shel kodes achas. This is all if the person is being over on the same Aveda of kodes and he's getting Malchus once and again, and then a third time he's placed into a kippah. Al shashtayim shashalish krisis. If it's from 2 or 3 different krisis, he's over one Aveda of Malchus and kodes and then another. So then you don't put him in a kippah because the halacha l'Moshe Misinai doesn't apply here. Isuri de katan. Here I say that the person is tasting one Aveda, another Aveda, but it doesn't show that this person is just hefker and he's ready to give up his life to die, and therefore he's doing the same Aveda again and again. He's not giving up his life, he's not hefker. So that's why the Gemara brought the reason for this halacha l'Moshe Misinai, in order for us to understand when it applies. Only if it's the same Aveda of kodesh again and again. The Gemara goes on, what did it say in the Mishnah? Mi shalokka v'shana. This is a person that got Malchus once. He got Malchus a second time. So then when it comes to doing the Aveda the third time, so now he's going to be placed into a kippah. Says the Gemara, what do we see here? Shana, afagav, doloi shilish. That this happened already twice. Even if he doesn't get Malchus the third time, still the person is going to be chayiv to be placed into this kippah. Says the Gemara, leime masnisen. The like Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, shall we say that what it says in our Mishnah does not follow the opinion of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel? Why? Because the Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. If we're following what Rab Shimon ben Gamliel said, Ha'amar atlas azimne la'ava chazakeh. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says that only after 3 times there is a chazakeh. This is a machlokes in the Gemara in Yevamis regarding when something happens again and again. When do you say that there's an assumption that it's going to happen yet again? After twice it happens, or after 3 times? So Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, this is what it talks about over there is regarding a woman that gets married to someone and her husband dies. She gets married to someone else and her husband dies again. The question is, could she get married a 3rd time to someone? Or will we say that this Isha, the Gemara says she's called a katlonis, because her husband, the men she marries die. So she can't get married a 3rd time. Or do I say no, only after 3 times, then I say that if she marries, she can't marry someone again. So over here in our Mishnah, what did it say? Lokka v'shana, after 2 times, there's already a chazakeh. So this only fits according to the opinion of Rabbi that argues with Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. So it's the like Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. The Rab Shimon ben Gamliel atlas zimni lo have a chazakeh. Until 3 times, it's not considered to be a chazakeh. So the Gemara answers, Amar Avine, Afilateme, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. No, what it says in our Mishnah could follow even the opinion of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Why? Because Kasavar, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel holds, Aveiros machzikais. That the Aveiros that the person does, Not the malchus. The avedas that the person does is what's machzik the person that he has to be placed into a kippah. So when it says in the Mishnah, Ava Vishana, and then when he sins the third time, he's placed into a kippah, even though he didn't get malchus 3 times yet, but he did the aveda 3 times, that's why the person is going to be placed into the kippah. So that's even according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. So that was the point of Ravina here, that we follow the three times that when it says in the Mishnah, Ava Vishana, and then the third time is placed into the kippah, it's the 3 Avedas. So it is 3 times, like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. So Meisvei, the Gemara asks on this pshat, it says in the Braise, Over Aveda sheyesh ba malchus, a person did an Aveda, and it has malchus, and as we explained before, this is a malchus with kodesh. So Pam Rishayno Shniya Malkin Naisai, the first and second time he gets malchus. On Shlishis, the third time, we place him into the kippah. Okay, so this would fit with the pshat that we said before, that this is like Rav Shimon Gamliel after the third time. But then it says, Abishal Loimer, Abishal says, Af Beshlishis Malkin Naisai. Even after the third time, he gets malchus. Only Berevius, after the fourth time that he does an Aveda, then we put him into a kippah. So the question is, how are you going to explain what Abishal said? If the pshat is like Ravina said, that we're following the Avedis that the person did, there's nobody that says that the Chazakeh is after 4 times. So why is it over here only that it says there that Berevius he's placed into the kippah? Why only after the 4th time? So my love, so don't you think that we have to explain this braise different than what Ravina said? The Kula Alme Malki is Machzikais. Everybody holds what creates the Chazakeh, that I say that then now he has to be placed into the kippah, he was mafkir himself, and he is going to have to die in a kippah. It's not the Avedis itself. It's the fact that he's getting malchus the 3 times. So what's the argument here? And the argument here is the same argument of Rabbi and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Whether I say after he got malchus 3 times, so then the 4th time he's placed into the kippah, or after he got malchus 2 times, and then after the 3rd time is going to be placed into the kippah. Right. So the machlokes of Abishal and the Tanakami here is true. It's talking about 3 times or 4 times doing the Aveda, but when you get to Malchus, the argument is like the argument of Rabbi and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, whether it's after 2 Malchus or after 3 Malchus that he's placed into the kippah. Says the Gemara, Eloi. That's not the basis of the machlokes. I can still say that what Ravina before said works with our Mishnah. The Kula Alme Islu de Rav Shimon Gamliel. Both opinions in this braise agree to what Rav Shimon Gamliel says, that a chazakah is established after something happens 3 times. Here the argument is as follows. The Mar Savar, the Tanakama here holds Avedis Machzikes, that it's the 3 Avedis that create the chazakah, and therefore after 3 times the person is placed into the kippah. But Umar Savar Malchus Machzikais. But according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, it's the Malchus that creates the chazakah. So therefore, after the person got Malchus 3 times, so you can't put him into the kippah after he got Malchus the 3rd time, because he already got Malchus. Once he already got Malchus for the 3rd time, you're not going to give him another punishment in addition to the Malchus. We're going to have to wait after the 4th time. Now after the 4th time, you're not going to give him Malchus. That's when you're going to place him into the kippah. That's Rashi's pshat in this explanation of the opinion of Abishal, why you have to wait till after the 4th time. Taisvis says, when it says here that the Malki is a Machzikais, what this means is only after we see that the Malchus that the person got did not help. It didn't prevent him of doing the Aveda, only then could I put him into the kippah. So only after he did the Aveda 3 times, and he then went and sinned the 4th time, meaning that the 3rd Malchus didn't even help him, so then only after the 4th time is he placed into the kippah. Okay, so we're sticking to Ravina's pshat that you could say in our Mishnah that it's referring to, like the opinion of the Tanakami here, that when he does the Aveda 3 times, that's when he's placed into the kippah. But the Gemara asks on this from another braise where it's seemingly not going to fit. Now the Tanya, in another braise it says, in a case where there is no Malchus at all, Hisrubai, a person got a warning, but he didn't accept the warning fully and properly in order that it should be a warning, that he should get Malchus. And Vishosak, he was quiet. He listened to the warning and he was quiet. Or Hisrubai, then he got another warning for repeating it again, and Vihirkin Raishai, he nodded with his head that he's accepting the warning. But as we learned already before in the Masechta, that's not considered to be a proper warning because the person has to accept and say, I'm matter myself to this Misa or to this Malchus. But here he didn't say that. So there won't be any Malchus. So now, Pam Rishayno Shnia Masrim Bai, the first and the second time he gets this warning, but then Shlisha is the third time, he's placed into this kippah to die. That's a Tanakama. Abishal says, Af Bishlishis, even the third time, Masrim Bai, he again gets a warning, and only Bereviyas, only the fourth time, he's placed into the kippah. So the question is, how do we explain what Abishal is saying here? Why only Bereviyas, kippah? And this is a question not only on Ravina, this is a question of Kula Alma. Over here, there's no Malchus involved. Over here, we're waiting until after the fourth time. Why not after the third time? L'Kula Alma, after the third time, there's a Chazakah. And he's not getting any Malchus, so you can't say, well, he already got Malchus, you can't place him into the kippah, according to Rashi's pshat, so he should be placed into the kippah after the third time. So how do we explain what Abishal says in this case, that you have to wait until the fourth time? And this is not, Rashi says, this is not only a question on Ravina's pshat before, that it's regarding the Avedis. This is Bechlal a question that it doesn't make sense that you should wait to the fourth, after the fourth Aveda, L'Kula Alma, after three times, it's already a Chazakah. And the Gemara here spells out, V'hasal Malchus Leke. Over there is no Malchus involved because he didn't accept the warning properly. So b'mai kamiflagi. So what is the basis of their argument? So the Gemara says, so the pshat we have to say in this whole Inyan is different. And here the Gemara will give a different pshat for this brayse, which will also be the pshat for the previous brayse as well. So Amar Ravina explained, B'kipa tzricha hasra kamiflagi. What they're arguing about is whether before a person is placed into a kippah, does he need an extra warning for that? And he has to be warned explicitly that if you're going to do this yet another time, you're not going to get Malchus, but you're going to be placed into the kippah. That's what they're arguing about. So according to the Tanakama, once he gets the warning three times for Malchus, and he does the Aveda three times, but he can't get the Malchus because he didn't accept the warning properly, he's placed into the kippah. He repeated the Aveda three times. He doesn't have to have a special warning that if you do it yet again, you'll be placed into the kippah. But Abishal says that you wait until the fourth time because only then can you give him a special warning to say, now you should know that you're going to be placed into the kippah. And therefore you have to wait until the fourth time. Amar Rav Yehuda said, Maloi kai masai. Sorry, I skipped a few words. My kippah. What is this kippah that we're talking about over here? What's the description of this cell? Amar Rav Yehuda said, Maloi kai masai. It's a kippah which is a tiny, tiny cell, and just like the height and the size of the person that is there inside the cell, and he can't even lie down, and there the person is going to die. Now, where's the remez for this kippah that the person dies in? Now, here's where Rashi brings, the Gemara asks the question, where's there a remez? Obviously, we're not going to give this einish of a kippah just with a remez. The source is a halacha l'moshe misinai. But where's there a hint for this? So Rish Lakish says, the pasuk says, until him, Tumaises Rasha Ra. A Rasha, his wickedness brings upon him that he should end up dying this way. Now, another pasuk that Rish Lakish darshans, V'amar Rish Lakish said, Mai d'chsiv, what's the meaning of the pasuk where it says, Ki lo yada adam esitoi. Person doesn't know his time, when it comes his time to leave this world. Kadogim shenechazim b'mitzuda ra, like fish that are caught with a mitzuda. What does this mean? Mitzuda ra, my mitzuda ra, amrish lakish chaka, like with a hook. What it means is there's two ways how large fish could be caught. Either you could put out massive nets, and there the fish see that they're going to be caught, they're going into a net. Or you could even have a very large fish that's caught with a little hook, and he doesn't even see it, and suddenly he gets hooked on and he's taken out of the water. The same thing also, a person lives life, and it's possible a person is sort of large, meaning he doesn't expect that this would happen, and all of a sudden the Eibusher says his time came. That's what you see here in this pasuk. If one is a murderer, and there's no Eidim for this, so even though we can't give him the punishment that the Torah says, Mises Bezdin, which is Sayif, but nevertheless, he'll be placed into this cell, and he's given to eat very little bread and very little water. And then as the Mishnah before said, he's given to eat this barley and he will die in this kippah. So the Gemara asks, if you said that there's no witnesses, that he killed anyone, so then how do you know that he's a Ritzeach? How can we place him in a kippah without witnesses? So the Gemara brings a few pshatim. So Amar Rav says the case here in this Mishnah is be'edos miyuchedes. When you have an eidos where there are two witnesses, but they didn't see it together. The halacha by din and nefashis is, if two witnesses are testifying about someone, they have to come and see it together, and then they can say eidos. If one saw it from one direction, from one window, the other saw it from a different place, from another window, but they weren't together, that's eidos miyuchedes, each one was alone, and it's therefore, to give him the mises bezdin, it doesn't qualify. But it's still an eidos. But in a moment it says would be an eidos, and here for this, to place him in a kippah, this is an eidos. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Shaloi Basra, that there's an eidos, but they didn't give him a warning. So they can't give him the misa of Saif, but he's going to be placed in the kippah. But Rav Chisda Amar Avimi, a third pshat, Kagayin is kashchosh bibidikis, v'leis kachish b'chakiris. Regarding Eidim, so there's both the interrogations, and that's the basic questions that you ask the Eidim, the time and the place and so on. And then there is bedikis, which is additional examinations. And that's other side details, the color of his clothing and other things that. And regarding this, it said before, Keditnan, we learned earlier in the Masechta, Maise, Ubadak ben Zakkai, Be'uktzei Teinim. Ben Zakkai, when he was baidik the Eidim, he even asked them the color of the stems of the figs where the story happened. And when the two Eidim did not match in that detail, so he didn't give the Chiyuv of Misa. So it's in that case where the Eidos is still considered to be a good Eidos, but not for Chiyuv Misa. And then you'll place him in the kippah. Now the Mishnah said, what do we do? He eats, they give him to eat very little food, very little bread, and very little water. Now, so Gemara asks, before, in the previous Mishnah here on this Amud, it also described regarding this kippah, it said different. So here the Mishnah says, and the Maishna Hassam in the previous Mishnah, the Tani over there didn't mention this detail, but it said that they give him to eat barley, which expands then in his stomach and it bursts. Rav Sheisher says that these two Mishnayos complete one another. Idi v'idi. In both cases, Neistum loy, Tsar Mayim, Elechem Tsar that is, Mayim Lachatz. You give him a little of water, a little of bread, Acha Yuktan Mayonai, and then his stomach is going to contract. And then, and then he eats the barley, Acha Kreisai Mizbakas, and it expands and his stomach bursts. So the two Mishnahs are mashlim one another. So the Heilige Mishnah, Hagoinev as a kasua, or as a, how do they pronounce it, or how do they have it over there? As a kasva. Kasva, okay. If someone steals kasva, as we'll see in a moment, it means someone steals from the kli shodes, from the vessels in the Beis HaMikdash. Or v'hamakalel b'kaisim, one that curses, opposite of a blessing on the Eibish's name, b'kaisim. Kaisim is, he's using the name of a kaisim, someone that does kishiv, to bless Hashem's name. V'habayol aramis, one that has a relation with a Goyish woman. So kanoim paigim, someone that sees this happening, and he's a kanoi, he's a zealot, he can be pageya, he can kill this person. And the Gemara is going to bring the source for this. Now, koyin sheshimish b'tumah, a koyin that serves in the Beis HaMikdash when he's tamei, ein echav hakoyinim mevi naisei lebezdin, his brothers do not bring him to Bezdin for the punishment. Rather, what happens is, the young koyinim mitziyin naisei, they schlep him out from the azara, chutz la'azara, umafziyin es moichai b'gzirin. And they hit him, they break open his head with gzirin, with a club or with a log of wood. This is also a halacha l'Moshe Misinai, that this is done. Hazar sheshimish b'mikdash, azar, one that is not supposed to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, and he does the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Akiva imer b'chenek. Rabbi Akiva says that the misa is chenek. Chachamim ma'imrim b'dei shemayim, that he gets misa only b'dei shemayim. Zok Gemara, my kasva. What did it mean when it says here that he steals kasva? Rav Yehuda kli shodes. This means someone that steals from the kalim of the Beis HaMikdash. What's this term kasva? It says one of the when you get to the shulchan that has the lechem upon him on it, ves k'sois hanesech. So that term k'sois hanesech refers to the shulchan that it had the poles on the side that held up the bread. That it shouldn't be placed. The bread shouldn't be placed on the table one on top of the other, but they're placed on shelves that allows it should be fresh with the ear in it. So that's the ksais hanesach, and therefore that's the term that's being used for any of the klishadas that one steals. That is this halacha of kanaan paigim by. So as I mentioned, it's halacha l'Moshe Misinai, but where is there a hint for this that this person you can kill him? Because it says v'lo yavayu lirois kevalas hakodesh u'meisum. So this is a remez in the pasuk. The simple pshat of the pasuk here is when the Yidden were traveling in the midbar, so the kohanim would first come in and cover the vessels, and only after it was covered, then the Levium would come and carry them. So the pasuk is saying, before the Kohanim cover, the Levium shouldn't come in to see. But here the Gemara is dashing the pasuk that v'lo yavoy lir is kevala sakaidish, meaning that one that's vala means someone that steals, he takes away, swallows, and takes away from the kodesh umeso. He could be killed. Then it said v'makal b'kaisim. What does this mean? Tana Rav Yosef said that what this means is yake kaisim es kaismai. When one says the opposite of a blessing on the Eibishter, and the term that he uses is that the kaisim, which is this sorcerer with kaisim, he should be makkeh, source of, in other words, the opposite of a blessing for kaismai, for the Eibishter that gave him this power of kishuf. So he's using this expression of opposite of a blessing on the Eibishter. That even if it's less than that, even different, he said, Yakeyu kaisim, that the Eibishter should bring a curse on this kaisim, on this one that's doing kishuf. But then he says also, loy for him, ulakainai, for his creator, ulamakneu, and for the Eibishter that provides him everything. So he's saying a opposite of a blessing for the person, but also for the Eibishter. That's this yaka kaisim that the Mishnah says, that if one says this, there's the halacha of kanoim poigim by.